And the Republican nominee for the House Speaker will need 217 GOP votes to win if all members vote. In a closed-door vote this week, Jordan got 99 votes. Scalise got 113. So joining us to talk about it all now is friend of the stream, former head of the Illinois GOP party, Pat Brady. Pat, your party, former party, still party, no longer the head of the party, ousted from the party, whatever you want to define yourself as.
I like parties.
They're a mess right now. So Scalise is clearly the favorite. I mean, and he was probably the guy that could unite and coalesce even Democratic votes. Now he's out. And Jim Jordan, who is a big Trump supporter, a lot of say kind of right of right, the Republican out of Ohio. I mean, does he get a chance to get enough votes to be the House Speaker?
I think not. I'll tell you why. Because there are 18 members of the United States House of Representatives that are Republicans, where Joe Biden won their district in 2020.
Okay.
So, and Jim Jordan's the leader of the impeachment proceedings. So if they're sitting there thinking, okay, if I vote for Jim Jordan, the mailers, the attack ads write themselves. This guy is the one that's running this legit or illegitimate impeachment inquiry against Joe Biden, a guy I voted for. So I think that would be damaging to anybody that voted for Joe Biden, and they're just not going to vote for him.
So how are you going to get enough votes?
I don't think he can. That's my point.
So who? How are they going to get
the votes?
What?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure. Maybe it's Patrick McHenry, the temporary speaker. Yeah. And it happens that somebody comes out of left field. Remember when Speaker Hastert won, 25 years ago, he wasn't the one that was supposed to win. Remember he got up and gave a big speech, the guy Wright from Louisiana, and stepped down, and then Hastert ended up being the speaker. When Paul Ryan became speaker, he didn't even want it, and they put him in. So it can come from anywhere, but it's really difficult to envision how these 17 or 18 people are going to come together with the rest of the caucus. And as we talked about last time, 85–90% of the caucus agrees on Scalise, and they agreed on McCarthy. It's just this faction of people that don't want to govern. They just want to hold things up. And this is not new. It's been going on for 8 or 9 years.
I mean, you say like Hastert didn't want it. And
Hastert wanted it, but he wasn't the front runner. But Ryan didn't even want it.
Exactly, and Ryan didn't even want it. But they were also kind of always in that sphere of, hey, this may be our guy anyways. Right now, it seems to be more.
Well, McHenry, maybe Tom Emmer. There's some people that are in the mix, but I agree with you. They're not anybody. There's nobody front and center.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing really, and this is a horrible thing to say because of all the tragedy that's going on in the world, the only thing that's saving the Republicans in the House politically now is everybody's distracted, and rightfully so, by what's going on in Israel, so not paying attention like they did maybe 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so let's skip our next question, go to Israel right now. Obviously, Gaza is front and center, what is happening in Israel. We have got a motion in front of City Council today to show support for Israel. Obviously there's a war in Ukraine that people have supported, and, we see some of that support waning. We are at a time where, a year and a half ago, Chicago with open arms about migrants, and now there are questions about whether some people want Chicago to be a sanctuary city. As a political advisor, so many hot button issues out there where the public has begun to waffle on things that were once sacrosanct, like keeping Chicago a sanctuary city or supporting Ukraine going against Russia. How do you advise those that you advise, knowing how fickle the public is right now, to take certain stances on things?
Well, I think each of those are distinct. Let's start with,
obviously.
But just distinct in the political part, like in Chicago, the sanctuary city issue, whether or not we're going to pay for these migrants that are coming up from the border states. And everyone, or a lot of people in Chicago, the progressives in particular, are like that when you didn't have to pay for it.
Right.
But now the problem probably for the mayor, and I'm sure he recognizes this, is his supporting the African-American community. They're the ones that are the most outraged by it. Why is all this money going to migrants? Why aren't we getting what we've been asking for? So it's a really, I think, difficult political issue for the mayor, because they're going to have to come up with a lot of money, as it is with the governor. But on the other issues, on Ukraine, I do believe there is overwhelming support in the House and the Senate to support Ukraine. But like any war, after a while, you want to know where the money's going. And there is a divide even on the Israel issue. There is a small but vocal segment that doesn't think we should be doing as much as we're doing with Israel. So they're difficult political questions. But my advice to any political candidate, at least as a conservative, stick with your principles. If you believe that we should support Israel, which I do, and I think a lot of conservatives do because they're the democracy in the Middle East that we need to support, a longtime ally, then we support them. Same with Ukraine. They're our bridge to keep keep this from escalating into Taiwan. But I think the most difficult issue is the one that the mayor faces. This is going to be a real problem for him. It's going to get cold tonight. Yeah. And there's a lot of people up in Streeterville where I live. There's a lot of people roaming around that need to be housed, and we need to take care of it. But it's easy to do it and talk about sanctuary city, and we're welcoming and we love everyone. We don't have to pay for it. But when it becomes a budget problem, then it becomes a political problem.
We were talking with one volunteer group yesterday who's trying to help migrants, and they say when they talk with the city about where to send their help, of all the good deeds that are being done and given to them, the city doesn't even know what they're doing, doesn't know where to send them. And the first thing they're asking for, on your tip, is they need adult-sized winter coats.
Sure, but listen, in their defense, this is not their issue. This is a border security issue.
Right.
I lived on the border for years, and it's a mess down there. It has been for a long time, and we haven't addressed it as a nation like we should have. And I never agreed with the build the wall stuff, but we need a secure border. It's not just a humanitarian issue; it's a national security issue, and especially with Hamas now declaring jihad today. People coming across the border, we got to know who's coming into our country. So, the city of Chicago is stuck with this issue because the feds aren't doing their job, and the feds aren't exactly coming in to help us. And
oddly enough, the guy who brings it to the forefront is the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, who came up with the idea of busing.
From a humanitarian perspective, it's abusive, and I don't agree with it at all. But politically, if you're living in Texas, you're saying the same thing. Why am I paying for this? And that was their way to answer. They sent it to the big cities, and they sent it to the Northeast. It's horrible, though. I mean, these are human beings, and we're treating them horribly. But what are you going to do? The feds need to help. The feds need to help.
Yeah. Okay. Pat Brady, we appreciate your time this Friday morning. It's always a pleasure.
Friday the 13th, buddy. Be careful out there. 13th. I walked under a ladder on the way here. Yeah, I saw a black rat. I saw a black rat in my.
Probably was a cat.
No, I think it was a rat.
Maybe a cat-sized.